by itself. But that would be a diagnostic approach, which is, you have to go and send it to the lab, someone needs to purify the protein, run the gel. It would be difficult to actually apply that for a clinical doctor. It wouldn't work that way. What you want for a diagnostic is something where you have perhaps a point of care test, and you can drop the blood, say within 15 minutes. Okay, as a patient, you carry this particular biomarker. A biomarker is a word you might have heard of, which, when we're talking about diagnostics, a particular protein marker of the disease, a biomarker. In this case, diagnosing lactate dehydration. The same protein we worked with last week, the same enzyme we worked with last week, is that biomarker. So, how do we develop a test like for lactate dehydration? So this is the theme for this Thursday, what we will be doing. And an immediate response might be, how about ELISA? You've obviously noticed about ELISA, you know about ELISA in previous courses? Just to remind you, ELISA is a commonly used diagnostic approach, commonly used clinically. And you would take a sample, so perhaps this might be a blood sample from the patient, and you would, there's a few variants of ELISA, but in this area here, we put the antigen on a plate, on the surface, and perhaps this is usually in the bottom of 96 wells, it's similar to the sort of wells we use in practical wells. You block so you don't get non-specific finding. You add an antibody which is specific to the antigen. This is what's the yellow. This is the primary antibody. And then in green you have the secondary antibody which recognizes the primary antibody. In the green you can link to something which makes some sort of allergen. So typically horseradish, peroxidase. There you go. Green is a tablet and attached to the surface. This antigen is not there, it's just going to get washed away. You'll never see that allergen. And that's the principle of ELISA, which I'm sure you've learned about a little bit. And the outcome in a multi-well plate looks like this. So, this is an approach which is commonly used in clinical labs for diagnosis. You don't see people doing this in doctors because it takes a long time, and there's always for hours and hours or busy. So these things are done either in the laboratories in hospitals or sent out to clinical laboratories. And so, like many businesses in Hong Kong, their business model is they provide services like this to clinical doctors. There are some drawbacks of using protein antibodies in ELISA tests. And those drawbacks are particularly relevant for tropical diseases like malaria. Antibodies are made of proteins. Proteins are not particularly stable. Proteins are quite expensive to manufacture as well. Antibodies in particular. Antibodies are. So, this is good for diagnosing many developmental diseases, not ideal for developing world disease. So, ELISA is not really used for malaria diagnosis. So we looked out at possible alternatives, and can we do something different for a protein for the molecular recognition, something different from an antibody? And that's what my lab does lots of research on. is developing nucleic acids to bind onto proteins. So you probably think of nucleic acids mainly in terms of being genes, DNA, coding for RNA, and being translated to protein. But nucleic acids can have a surprising variety of structures. And you can think of the specificity two ways round. So if you think of, say, a restriction enzyme, the normal way we think in our language is to say, okay, this restriction enzyme recognizes this ATG GAA cycle, whatever it is. But you could think of this the other way around and say, okay, is it a restriction enzyme? Is it the ATG GAA recognizing the restriction enzyme? And so that sort of switching round of the thinking of this recognition of the two surfaces, how we think about nucleic acids in this way. This is the structure of one of the atoms which we discovered in our laboratory, which is actually the same one you'll be using on Thursday. And we later managed to solve the crystal structure of the atom in context with the protein. This is single-stranded DNA. So when nucleic acids are single-stranded, then they have all these funny structures. So you probably haven't thought too much about single-stranded DNA, because when you learn about DNA structure, the first things you learn is the DNA duplex and the base pairing and so on. Yeah? But single-stranded DNA can have quite a lot of structure, and unusual structure. So this is one example. You see this is single-stranded DNA. It has a hairpin structure right here. Some of the bases are flipped around in unusual positions, and they're not facing inwards to the rest of the nucleic acid, pointing outwards and interacting with the protein. And there are some, in this base pairing, there's actually some non-hoop stain base pairing pairs here also. So not ATGC, but other hydrogen bond base pairing. So it's quite an unusual structure. And so then you might ask, well, how do you get these molecules? How do you get the DNA which is so specific to binding to the protein? This was selected for binding to natural DNA. We have selected many different single-stranded DNAs against lots of different proteins. Not even proteins, we select them against cells, surfaces, or different things. So how do we get these things? How do we know the sequence of this particular actin? We've got 27 nucleotides. And we select them by doing in vitro evolution experiments. This is what we do in the lab. If you start off with a very large line of single-stranded DNA, billions of molecules, billions of molecules. So normally we start with 10 to the power 15. That's a million billion. A quadrillion molecules. No. And that's very easy to get that library, because when you do this DNA synthesis, it's sort of like an oligo, you say A, C, G, G, T, A, whatever your sequence is. Sometimes you just put a mixture of all of the nucleotides into the solid phase synthesis, and then you've got a 25% chance on each of the 4 nucleotides. Yeah. So if you've got one base, then your likely side is 4. Yeah. If you've got 2 bases, your likely side is 6. So we've got 3 bases, 64. It's a 4 to the power n relationship. Once you get up to the number of about 30, you get 30 bases. That number is about 10 to the power 16, because it's a 4 power relationship. And of course that is like very fast. So then you start with a library. These libraries are much easier to get than say chemical libraries, where you get 6% chemists to make 100,000 compounds. But this is a library of DNA. Out of that library, most likely there are sequences of single-stranded DNA which will bind to any protein very, very tightly. It's just because it's a numbers game. We're talking about 1 out of quadrillion sequences. You're going to find something against most proteins will get that pattern. And so you start off with this library, and then you've got some target. The grey thing is some protein. Where this experiment slaps it dehydration. Okay, virtually all the libraries that you find, there are a few molecules we find. It's becomes it. Everything else is washed away. But then the great thing is you're working with DNA, so you can amplify. So you start off with a quadrillion molecules, you're down to a handful, 30, 50 molecules. Most other sort of techniques, you can't recover that. You don't know what those 30, 50 molecules are. But for DNA, you can use PCR. So you can recover them. You can work out what they are. You can introduce variation. Let's do aerospace. You introduce variation. So this cycle of selection, amplification, variation, this is the same as Darwinian evolution in biology that we're doing with chemicals. So sometimes these processes are called an in vitro evolution experiment, integrating these three stages. And so you can go through a cycle of selecting a DNA molecule which binds tighter and tighter to a particular target by evolving in the test tube. You don't have to do it with DNA. You can also do it with RNA. If you have a reverse transcription step. You won't watch the video now, but in your own time, have a look at this video. And this process is also known as selective evolution of ligands by exponential enrichment. And it was a really groundbreaking sort of step forward actually to do this. You can also split in different ways. So one way might be to have your protein on the fruit of the plant and pass your library through, or on little beads that possibly can open up and you can run your library to it. Other ways are to use different types of partition. So SPR, maybe three that you know about. So this is doing by surface plasmon resonance. This is doing it on a surface. Or by capillary electrophoresis, it's another type of chromatography. There's quite a few different ways to do it. There's some other variations here. You don't have to use DNA. You could use more exotic nucleic acids. So probably in all of your biochemistry, you've only learned about DNA and RNA as nucleic acids. There's a whole lot of other nucleic acids. And those have advantages because most of the exotic nucleic acids, they change particular positions. So like 2' group. So the 2' group, of course, in DNA is just the hydrogen, or an RNA is just the hydroxide. Yeah. But you can change that to something else. You have amine or fluorine, methyl. There's a 4' bio, like other variations in nucleic acid. These are really useful because all of the enzymes in our cells usually don't recognize them. We can still amplify them with DNA polymerase, but But then if you get it close to a nucleus in our cells, they're completely stable. In biology, they're not directly bound. So that could be useful for diagnostics and for therapeutics. This technique was developed in 1990 originally, in the two big papers. So like many discoveries in science, for some reason, so many big discoveries are happening in two groups at the same time. And usually they'll be competing, they come and somehow know about what's happening in the editors of science and nature, and they speak to each other, and often this happens inside one paper in science, one paper in nature. This is what happened. You might have heard of Jack Szostak. Jack Szostak? You know Jack Szostak? No? He won the Nobel Prize for discovering telomeres. And that's related to this because he was trying to also understand telomere function and stuff like that. There's a lot that has been built since then in 1990. You can develop aptamers against proteins as drug targets. Various ones are in clinical trials against all sorts of targets in different therapeutic areas too. And there's one aptamer which is used already clinically for the treatment of macular degeneration. Macular degeneration is the commonest cause of blindness in the developed world. And it binds to a small protein in PDGF. This is the structure of it. You see it's an RNA aptamer. U instead of T, so it's an RNA aptamer. And it also has quite a lot of stabilization of the chemistry around the glycodes, because of course the normal RNA is degraded into seconds and useful as it. So this drug was developed. There was a collaboration of chemists making different chemistries on the nucleotide, and then stabilizing the ends with unusual chemistries. So naked 3' ends on nucleic acids are very unstable. So when you do that, so one way to stabilize them is to flip around and have a 3' end. So you often see this in lots of genetic therapies research, or research for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. You might have heard about things like exon-skipping. I don't know if this might be something that is important or something like that. It's a great example of chemists and biologists working together to come up with these therapies. Most of the very innovative medicines get applied for macular degeneration. It's a very easy location to deliver to, compared to if you're trying to treat something like liver cancer or lung cancer or the eye is considered as an organ where it's very easy to get to therapeutic time. So you often see that in those innovative medicines. Attempts have been made to develop aptamers against HIV, which of course causes AIDS, and against various enzymes which are important. Aptamers went through clinical trials which unfortunately recently failed, controlled blood clotting through surgery. So these are aptamers against thrombin. Thrombin, of course, is one of the important proteins in the blood clotting cascade. And this aptamer is interesting because it has a very unusual structure. See the structure here? Here's the sequence, GGT. Very simple sequence. I'm surprised it got so far in that trial. So I wonder then how it has plasticity to come. Because it's when you have G-rich sequences, the single-stranded DNA, you get something called a G quadruplex structure, where you get 4 Gs at the points of the square in the plane. This is a G quadruplex structure. So this unusual structures of DNA, single-stranded DNA. The G quadruplex structure is stabilized by catalytic centers. You see the 4 Gs over there on the right side, and then down the center, you have sodium or potassium ion. So this is an unusual nucleic acid structure. The idea here was that the challenge during surgery is you want something which can accelerate blood clotting and then slow down blood clotting. So the surgeons developing this thought, okay, we'll have this action which inhibits this whole thing. Once it's done, then stops it working. And then we'll have an antidote to the actin, because the base paired version, so we had CCAA, CCAT, ACC, AACC, yeah? We'll bind onto this other aptamer and then just form a double unit, yeah? And then that aptamer doesn't work. So they thought, okay, we could use this aptamer to slow down blood clotting. Then you have the antidote to stop the aptamer working. And then during surgery, once you're operating, you control the blood clotting. We got to stage 3 clinical trials, and then after hundreds of millions of US dollars. So anyway, this is what happens to many of the drugs that we discussed last week. Let's come back to something a bit simpler. So we talked about someone is already. Could we use an aptamer instead of the antibody for molecular recognition and analysis? So this might be an example of how you design. This is an example of a sandwich where you have an aptamer on one side, so the red Y is your aptamer capturing the analyte. So different from that example previously, where the sample was on the surface. Now we have an antibody on the surface. Capture the analyte. And then a second aptamer recognizing the antibody. And then a secondary antibody on the top. So it's like a variant of the sandwich ELISA, but instead of using an antibody, again, we're using the antibody. One of my colleagues in University of California, Santa Barbara, has done a lot of work on environmental detection, and in particular cocaine detection. So cocaine is a small molecule. The structure is not so far from caffeine. You can also select aptamer against small molecules. So we developed an electrosensing approach where you put the aptamer on a surface, and in analytical chemistry there's a big research field about how you get different conductivities of surfaces depending on how close the nucleic acids are to that surface, and it changes the electrochemical properties. So in analytical chemistry, this is a big research field. There's a lot of links to methodology to integrate these into the top. But this uses a ruthenium silicon nanoparticle, and the electrical properties vary very significantly with how far this ruthenium silicon nanoparticle is from the surface, which changes according to aptamer binding to the cocaine. So don't worry about this too much. I just want to keep this as an example of ways of developing biosensors, because this is a hugely expanded field, which very multidisciplinary, really, electrobiology, engineering, chemistry, and to bring all these together new technologies, and particularly with mobile phones, there's huge areas of research about integrating biosensors and different mobile phones. Exciting area. You're probably a bit more familiar with microarrays. So I think you've heard of certain microarrays when you use cDNA microarrays. And these are get printed onto slides, and you have maybe a million spots for a million different sequences, or identifying DNA sequences by identification. But you can also do this with atoms. You have microarray atoms. So this is not a big function of antibodies. It's very difficult to put, if you have 20 different antibodies against different targets, to put proteins on the surface and keep them all active is really challenging. But with nucleic acids, it's a lot simpler. So it's another advantage when you're trying to multiplex. Multiplex means trying to do lots of assays at the same time. At the moment, there's very little multiplexing in this. When you go for a diagnosis of the disease, the doctor does it once at a time. But in 50 years' time, it will be very different. And I'm sure when you go for a diagnosis of the disease, you're going to diagnose 1,000 things at the same time. And that's already happening. So certainly in terms of genetics, but less so all the time you've got trying to pick up proteins. Okay, so going back to this practical, now that's a list of the foundation about what happens and what we can do. The challenge, why would ICE work? Because it comes with malaria diagnosis. Malaria diagnosis, if someone thinks you've got malaria here in Hong Kong, what will happen is that your blood sample will get sent from that and examined. They use this technique for a new, it's the gold standard still. You just use a dye which binds to the plasmodium parasite. Plasmodium parasite is inside the red blood cells, and they get some kind of candidate. It's very simple. It's almost something that may wouldn't. But the problem is you need really good microscopes, and you need trained personnel. You need really good laboratory. So, and when you suspect to have malaria, you need to know within 24 to 48 hours. You can't, if you delay, particularly if you're a young child and you have malaria, then you also have a big impact on mortality rate. So that's fine if you live in proper and you go to the Mary Hospital. But of course, most of the at-risk population does not have access to mental hospital within 24 hours. Half the world's population is at risk of malaria. So 3 billion are at risk of living in malaria endemic areas. So what other ways? PCR has been developed to identify by the DNA sequence. But it's similar issues. PCR, you need field cycler, you need expertise, you need electricity. So I think still it's over 1 billion of the world's population still lives without electricity. And of course, this is the population most at risk. So the World Health Organization has been pushing for rapid diagnostics. So these are very similar to pregnancy tests. Lateral flow immunochromatography tests. And it's a little bit like an immunizer. You have a lateral flow, and then you have a gold nanoparticle, and then these get immobilized, and they stop at a particular antibody which is lying on the strip stable. This is how a pregnancy test works. You have a positive control plus certain negative. So you have one band which shows that the device is working, and then one band shown here. If you have malaria, that's even for predators, it's the same place. The problem is they use antibiotics. And we discussed earlier the problems of antibiotics is quite expensive to manufacture, they're not very stable, often you need to refrigerate them, and if there is what protein and that's always stick them in the fridge. DNA, you might have noticed people can order it by mail and arrive later just as time. DNA is much stable. So could we use DNA instead of protein? Just a quick reminder of what we're trying to do. You don't do the diagnostic test when you get symptoms which are in your blood status. Basically, the malaria parasite is in these red blood cells. So we do this cycle, we get a reprocyclic cycle. That's when you get the symptoms. That's when you want to diagnose very fast, so you know what drug treatment to get for the malaria. And there's quite a few papers talking about how fast these rapid diagnostic tests using antibodies lose their efficacy without a cool chain. So cool chain basically means having refrigeration, having air conditioning. And if you imagine a lorry trying to deliver rapid diagnostic tests to sub-Saharan Africa, the temperature of the lorries gets up to 70 degrees. So I think this is what happens. Okay, right. So let's come back to the practical with this context. So unfortunately, we don't have time to actually do an anatomy selection because that takes experiment. So we won't do the in vitro evolution experiment. So what we will do is imagine the colleagues, you've asked your colleagues at all, you do research in anatomy, so you find me an atomer which binds very tightly with this protein. This is where we're at now. So they found that this is our atomer, this is the actual sequence of the atomer, and the structure here. If you want to characterize if it's a good atomer or not, the first thing you would ask is what is the dissociation constant binding of the atomer to the protein? We're running out of time, so I'll have to ask you to go through some of these theory slides very quickly. To remind you, two things binding to each other. You can think of it in terms of genetics, you can think of it in terms of thermodynamics. Remember that it's big K of thermodynamics. Little k a rate. You will see your chemistry. And you can imagine the association, so P is protein and L is ligand, by this relationship. Or you can think of this as a rate. And in biochemistry, you might see little k A or little k B. Often it's easy to tell the difference when people use A and K1 and K1. And another term to be aware of is action of the occupied site of a particular protein. And the big A, Ka, and the big Kd, their differences is one over the other. It's just upside down. But usually in biochemistry, we use Kd. So we talk about, okay, it's an animal with this, and we're talking about dissociation processes, Kd. So that's a bit confusing because normally in chemistry, we're talking about association. Or biochemistry. So this is theta on the y-axis. The portion of occupied sites. So when it's full, it's at 1. And the titration of the ligand, increasing the ligand concentration, and you determine if AB is when you're halfway up to this. So it's a little bit like in kinetics we talked about last week. Here we're talking about dissociation. We're not talking about an enzymatic reaction. We're just talking about binding. Two molecules binding to each other. Kinetics. Because we're running out of time, I won't go through. There's another way to look at it in terms of kinetics. In practical, we're only doing it by thermodynamic equilibrium. I'm just going to skip these kinetic slides and go straight to this one. Okay. So that definition of the dissociation constant. In terms of the chemistry, so either use P or L, or use A and B. It's the same sort of thing, A and B or P and L. And what you could do is measure the concentrations of all these species. But that's very difficult to do experimentally. So what we do is we make a small approximation and take one of these out of the equation. So if one of the protein to DNA interactions is a very low concentration, a lot underneath the KB, then we can remove that, and then we can just measure one species, just measure the concentration of either the protein or of the DNA. So then it's very simple, we just increase the concentration of the X and measure this as it reaches the fills all the sites, all the bindings. And so it would look like this. This is what we do. So this is why we say, okay, we measure in terms of concentration. So it's a tight binding, it goes up very quickly. It's a weak binding, you have to go so much higher concentration. So it goes up all the sites. So it's a weak binder, 100 nanomolar, then halfway, and reach for a much higher concentration. This can be more accurately plotted if you use a logarithmic scale. So you see here the x-axis is the logarithmic scale. In practical, we're doing an enzyme. So we have the protein, we have the actin. The question is, what is the dissociation between the two? We need to fix one, and then vary the concentration of the other. What we will do is we're going to fix the actin concentration, so that you can see it on the gel. This is a polyacrylamide gel, because it's a small DNA. We use macros gel, so polyacrylamide gel. Here it is, visible actin. Now, you do a titration with more and more protein, so that LDH is increasing. Then the DNA either migrates fast if it's by itself, or it migrates slowly if it's a DNA protein. So it moves fast here, or it moves slowly here. Then you can plot this data. And you convert this density of colour, or this density of colour, to the binding point. And where it's halfway is the dissociation. It's actually very simple to determine dissociation. You just need an assay to tell the difference between the bound and the unbound state. This could be done by various ways. It could be done by UV, in absence of different signal, or UV absorption, or it could be by NMR or IR, or here by gel. And so, of course, the behavior is very small. This is very tight binding, nothing happens, and it's larger, it's these are some of the concepts that we've gone through. So I just encourage you to revise those authors and then think about things that so there. Review the lab manual, which I can suggest.